Bleary-eyed and tired after watching tennis at Roland-Garros the night before, I scrambled downstairs to grab coffee in my hotel. In the lift, a tall gentleman made conversation with me, asking, "Hey, judging by your t-shirt, you clearly went to the tennis last night." We made conversation on the way to the breakfast, introduced ourselves, and this gentleman was none other than Gavin Crookes, the president of South African tennis. Can you believe that? Gavin was kind enough to give me 2 hours of his time the following Sunday before heading off to watch the men's final. We spoke about life, tennis, and business. Gavin was incredibly insightful on what it takes to run tennis in South Africa, be president of a country's tennis, and I thoroughly enjoyed talking to him. This is episode 2 of Black Swan Diaries. Enjoy it, and we'll see you on the court.
So I would have served 15 years as president of Tennis South Africa. You've got a 1 in 1.5 million chance of making it. Okay, it is the toughest sport to make it in.
But what do you think happens where they just sometimes can't convert, can't win that final point?
Your success in tennis is very much dependent on what's between your ears and how you're managing your body. It's not about whether you can or can't play a shot.
Yeah.
It's effectively encompassed being the boss of tennis in South Africa. Yeah.
You had to think differently or be different to do what you've done and not follow the herd or,
I've never followed the herd.
Why don't you start with introducing who you are to people that don't know who you are, what's your, beyond the titles in the CV, who is Gavin Crookes?
That's an interesting question. Gavin Crookes is someone who lives in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands of South Africa. I am a large commercial sugarcane farmer. I have my own accounting practice. I've served on the board of Ilova Sugar. I'm the incumbent vice chairman of the Newsburg Cane Growers Association. I'm very involved in the sugar industry as such. I think in terms of my business, as I've indicated, I'm a large commercial sugarcane farmer. I have my own accounting and tax practice.
Yeah.
Included in that business is also a retail fuel station in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands. I have farms on the Wartburg side of Pietermaritzburg and the Richmond side of Pietermaritzburg. The fuel station is on the main D54 between Pietermaritzburg and Akopo, so just outside Richmond. Academically, went to Highbury Prep School, went to Hilton College, then did a Bachelor of Accounts and Science Honours through UNISA back in the day. Then did a master's degree through the University of Northwest in South African and International Taxation. I'm a member of the South African Institute of Professional Accountants. Did 5 years articles of clerkship back in the day.
How was that?
And interesting. Learned a lot. Spent a couple of years in the legal industry. Even spent some time in the motor industry before I went on my own. Basically, took over my father's farm when he decided to retire. The Crookes family, per se, has been very involved in the sugar industry in South Africa since 1860.
Yeah.
And have grown that business and have grown the business. So became involved in tennis administration in 1997 when I, as the treasurer of the local tennis club, went to a district meeting. And what happens when you're an accountant is that you're going to be the treasurer. We need a treasurer.
Yes.
And so, and the rest is history. From there, became president of what was then Midlands Tennis in the Midlands at Pietermaritzburg. Then via that, served on the executive of the KwaZulu-Natal Tennis Association. Became president of tennis of KZN Tennis for 10 years. Whilst I was president of KZN Tennis, was elected onto the board of Tennis South Africa, or as it was then, the South African Tennis Association. in around about 2008, I think it was, or 2007. Became vice president of Tennis South Africa. I think it was about 2011, and became president in 2013. So
over a decade now.
well, decade seems quite harsh. It's better to say around about 12 years.
12 years.
It is. The current term ends in 2028. So I would have served 15 years as president of Tennis South Africa.
And what's it like running tennis in South Africa? What does it encompass?
Well, that's a huge subject. So at various stages, I have not only been president, I've also been the acting CEO when Tennis South Africa hasn't had a CEO. So that is effectively encompassed being the boss of tennis in South Africa. That said, like any business, it's about having the right team around you. I mean, living in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands, just outside Wartburg, is not really the effective place to be running Tennis South Africa. The head office or the offices of Tennis South Africa are based in Centurion, and that's where we have 14 staff members. It's divvied up between those staff members in terms of the various silos of tennis, from high performance tennis to coaching, to schools, to officiating, to junior tennis, to tournaments, to name some of the things that those are all the areas that are encompassed, and there's a level of specialization within that. So there's no ways that I can that anybody who's president or general manager, as we now have, has necessarily got the intimate knowledge that's required, but we do have the personnel to do that. It's all about running tennis as a business. And if you get those basics right, and I'm not suggesting we get them right all the time by any stretch of the imagination, it's about doing the best we can with what we've got. And I think based on what we do have, I think we do a reasonable job. It's not like the French Tennis Federation or the USTA or tennis associations like that, or Tennis Australia, that have a staff of between 700 and 1,000 people. So their ability to deliver, but then they've got their budgets are just mind-boggling in terms of the kind of money that they're able or that they generate from the slams to start with. And then just in terms of their membership, what the membership generates. So they can obviously also give a lot back, give back a lot more. It's quite interesting. I was looking at a podcast yesterday of the fellow who started the IPL, who's Indian fellow, who's become a little bit of a pariah seemingly. And he was being interviewed by a lady in London because he'd had death threats and he'd run away and all the rest of it from India. And he actually struck a chord with me last night when I got back into the hotel. A friend of mine sent me the podcast, and it was about does your federation or does your event capture the interest of spectators? And the IPL has a huge spectator base in India. He, of course, is suggesting that it's not being fully exploited, in that you could have 1 billion more people watching if they did some things better, which that's fine. I mean, I as much as I do watch a bit of cricket, and as you probably would remember, Gavin Crookes, my first cousin, was a Springbok. His father was a Springbok, or Protea, and so there is an interest in cricket. But it was more just the concept of spectators, and I think one of the biggest challenges we have in South Africa with tennis presently is that we don't have a brand to sell to spectators like a Grand Slam. So how do you work on that? And you've got to work on developing role models. You've got to work on role models, and obviously there's an event that you've got to build. You have to build, and many many commentators, many times, during interview, I'm asked, so when are we getting an SA Open back? And we had an SA Open sort of 2007 through to around about 2011, and it sort of went from a $100,000 challenger event to an ATP 250, and there was a whole lot of reasons why that was the case at the time, and South African Airways was the ranking sponsor of the ATP. So there was a bit of a quid pro quo that South Africa ended up being able to lease an ATP 250 for 3 years, and then it wasn't renewed for not because of Tennis South Africa, I must hasten to add. That was a decision made by the ATP Players Council, which is an interesting story in itself, but we'll leave that aside. And we haven't been able to in fact financially get it back, get something like that back. What really has been great this year is finally there have been some people in the country who have worked out or have known, and I think they just haven't really been able to source the finance until this year, where if you take the European model, where it's not the federations that are actually hosting events, it's private people, and a lot of junior events and a lot of, let's call them, development events. So anything under the tour is generally hosted by a tennis academy, or it's hosted at a club that is owned by a private businessman. And so it's very rarely the federation.
And facilities wise, that place can.
It's all at the club that So if I'm trying to think of a club that take Kelvin-Grove. So in many European countries, like either the Durban Country Club or Kelvin-Grove, that club is owned by a private person and it's run as a business. And he's got an academy, he or she has an academy based at that club, and they're developing juniors, and they all want to have the kudo of having the next Alexander Zverev or the next Alcaraz or whatever the case might be. And so they see that as an opportunity to develop their players, and because they host it, they get a certain number of wild cards that they can get. They can push players into the qualifying draw and into the main draw. So that's how the system and the whole ecosystem in Europe, and slightly lesser extent to the States, but that's how it happens.
Do you think, we spoke the other day about it, do you think that tennis in general is making comeback to the point where, through padel, for example, people got interested again in playing racket sports, paddle sports, to the point that maybe that can help with people wanting to watch, wanting to play?
I think so. If we look at what's happened in South Africa, there's definitely been a reignitement in the interest in tennis as a result of padel. So as I sort of indicated to you, what's happened is that a lot of people, for whatever reason, have stopped playing tennis because it's at a certain stage of life or whatever it is. And we always have a bit of a vacuum in terms of our membership between the ages of 18 and probably 40. Anyway, and as a result, we don't really get much traction in terms of being able to have tournaments for that age group, although we now do have the Amex Club event, which is very popular. But what padel has done is that it's brought a whole spectrum of people to a tennis club. It's brought feet through the tennis club, so the ecosystem of the club has significantly improved in terms of selling food and liquor and the like. But also what has happened is that you had former tennis players or people who have played tennis at school. They've come to play padel. They've been a little frustrated in terms of getting access to a court. They've ended up, well, seeing as we're here, let's have a game of tennis. Geez, what a fantastic game. Why don't we play? And they've ended up coming back to play tennis. The major challenge, as I call it, that we have in South Africa, it's crazy to say, it is actually our climate. So for tennis, because if you look at Europe and the States, and I'm being blunt in saying that's where tennis happens, is the support that a club gets in those countries is massive compared to the support that a club will get in South Africa. So if you look at the global tennis report, we in South Africa have somewhere between 700 and 800,000 people who play tennis. A tennis player is defined as somebody who plays tennis twice or more a month. Okay. Only 40,000 of those 700,000 belonged to registered clubs. And come through and are on our Tennis South Africa database as registered tennis players. So, where are those other 660
that
are tennis players? So the reality is that in your major cities, in the middle class, let's call it upper middle class through to the world, they have a tennis court in their back garden. All right. And I think if you take into account that, the number of private tennis schools that there are around the country, and I probably get invited to play tennis at some of those schools, once or twice a week. And that's where tennis play, and that's where probably the majority of our tennis is actually played in terms of over 18. And then the second challenge is that there's the disconnect between the Department of Sport and Recreation and the Department of Education, and who actually is in charge of school sport. Department of Education maintains that it's theirs. Department of Sport and Recreation maintains that it's theirs, and neither in the middle do the two meet. So you end up having school events being run by different parties, and neither do the two do their meet. And it's very frustrating as the federation, because so we say to the Department of Education, well, why aren't we running your tennis event? And they sort of look at us blankly and say, we've got our own people. I'm not going to comment on what I think of their own people and their ability to run a tennis event. Department of Sport and Recreation, they tend to focus more on the development area. And once again, you need a kind of specialized person to sort of to run what I call development tennis, which is really your entry level, because basically those players, it's the first time some of them are even holding a tennis racket. So they haven't even learned how to start hitting a forehand or a backhand and things like that. So I think those are the unique challenges that we as a federation at the bottom of Africa face. So
the other parts of Africa where a lot of ITFs are held, and those other countries, what's the tennis like in?
So let's cut to the chase in terms of Africa. And say you've got South Africa at the bottom, and then you've got Morocco, Egypt, and Tunisia at the top. Algeria to a distant kind of 6th, 7th kind of thing. Tunisia has ITF junior events every week, 52 weeks of the year. Well, they've more than 50. I think the last number I saw is that they had about 61 junior ITF events.
They're having
so their business model isn't interested. They have a particular business model around that, and it's all based along the Red Sea. And so what they do is that your entry, your J1, so from your J30s up to your J100s, the players have to pay for their own accommodation. After the 200s, you've got to provide the H. So if you have a look at if you had a look at the tournaments that they're hosting, they're all up to J100s, because the business model is based on the fact that so they are hosting those tournaments in low holiday periods, and they're just happy to break even because they're going to make their money out of selling the room and selling the food. And the other thing that goes with that is that those Red Sea resorts are you captive, because there's just desert around you. So you can't like if you come to a J100 in Cape Town or in Durban, for instance, you can choose where you want to stay. I mean, if you want to go and stay and pitch a little tent in the caravan park, you can do it. Or you can go to an Airbnb and you can do your own thing. Where there, you're captive because you're probably 250 kilometers away from the next bit of building, or let alone.
And are players then going there obviously to get the points to
100%. The other thing is that the top of Africa is almost, tennis-wise, it's just considered another province. I mean, to get you can pay $90 to get a return airfare from Heathrow to a lot of those places. So the moment they get knocked out of the tournament, they just hop back on the plane and go home, and then they just come back for the next week again. So they're not there for the whole. They're not there for the whole duration of 3 weeks or 4 weeks of events that they will have in a row.
So a big thing that I want to talk about you today is branching off that insane article that you sent me about the lady from yesterday.
Yes.
Before we get into that, and I want you to tell that story because it's insane. But I mean, you obviously have an insight into the life of these professional players, and we've all been brought up with the glamorous stars, the Federers, now the Alcarazes and Sinners, and now there's big sponsored deals. You see Sinner with Gucci and Sabalenka, and appearance fees, as you taught me the other day about. But now you get this story of this woman coming to the French Open, qualifying, etc., which I'll let you carry on with. Just give some background of how hard it is to, for example, become a pro. And
so let's start around the question of how many tennis players are there in the world. Okay. Let's start at the global. And let's start at the global tennis. Let's look at the global report, which says that currently there are about 113 million people in the world who play tennis. Okay. The ITF, the International Tennis Federation's objective is to get that number by the end of 2028, somewhere in the region of about 125 million people playing tennis. Okay. Then let's drill down into where does the men's ranking, the ATP ranking, run out, and where does the ladies' ranking, WTA ranking, runs out. And the men's runs out at about 1,700, and the ladies runs out at about 1,400. Work that out as a percentage of the number of tennis players there are in the world. That it's minuscule. It's not even 1%. It's like it's a quarter. It's a 0.000%. Then let's refer to a very, very good stat that Dominic Thiem shared, and it went along the lines of, so what if you assess your risk, and if you're an accountant, or if you follow the stock exchange or whatever the case might be, and you're constantly evaluating your risk, you've got a 1 in 1.5 million chance of making it. Okay. It is the toughest sport to make it in. It's even tougher than golf. Okay. Let's drill down a little bit further and say to you that pre-COVID, the calculation in terms of, and I appreciate what you might consider to be a reasonable living and what I might consider to be a reasonable living are two different things. Okay. But if we look at that number pre-COVID, it was estimated the top 85 men's players were making a good living, and probably the top 80 women were making a good living. Okay, post-COVID, it halved. It's reckoned that the top 45 men are making a good living, and the top 38 to 40 women are making a good living. Once again, I qualify that. I qualify that by saying, what you think is a good living, etc. I'm not talking about flying first class tournaments and things like that.
Paying your expenses.
Being able to pay your expenses to start putting away money, because remember, unlike yourself or myself, we've got from, let's call it, the ages of 25 to 70 to put together a wealth. So that's, for the last 20 years of our life, when we theoretically want to survive, retire, and six, we've got enough of a pile or whatever it is. Their window is significantly smaller. So yes, you've got your Djokovic's are now heading into 240, and there are a lot of reasons around that.
Yeah.
You know, the way all sport is developing in terms of biokinetics, in terms of eating habit, you know, what you eat and all the rest of it is improving significantly year in, year out. So there's no doubt the longevity of players is lengthening, but that creates a problem in itself, because that means that it makes it even tougher
for the
entrance.
Djokovic is still
He's still here, so he's still taking a huge chunk. He's taking a huge chunk of what might have been dissipated back downwards to the guys. So it's almost the longer somebody stays in the sport, it becomes a barrier. In terms of the ecosystem, it becomes a barrier to entry of the next generation coming through. Yes, you know, Sinner at the Aussie Open this year said, you know, if by the age of 24 he wasn't in the top 10, he was giving up tennis. And part of that reason was clearly he worked out the numbers and said, you know, if you're going to be a journeyman tennis player, well, that's fine, but you're not going to end up being wealthy, and you're not going to be able to have the lifestyle of Federer and well, Federer is the prime example in terms of he's one of the first billionaire sports persons and all the rest of it. I mean, he really cultivated a brand, which will, I mean, I don't think his grandchildren will need to ever work, but I'm just saying. So yeah, that gives you the kind of insights that, as I indicated a little bit earlier, spectators love role models, and they will follow a role model, you know, and the role model is going to draw the cash, and is going to fill your stadiums, which is going to make your going to help the viability of your event. You know, there've been many case studies that have shown, and that's you know, there was an event many years ago held in Stockholm in Sweden where the tournament director every year sucked it up and paid the marketing fee for Roger Federer to come, because he knew that would fill the stands, and he sold every single ticket. In fact, this year the prime example was Barcelona. Alcaraz, and then he got injured. But before it was announced that he'd withdrawn, you could not get a ticket for Barcelona, the Barcelona 500, because it was, Sinner wasn't playing. He was only chasing the 1000s. But you know, traditionally the top Spanish players always played Barcelona 500. I think Nadal won it 11 or 12 times, and they've had that traditional thing where he leaps into the pool with all the ball kids and things like that. But that's the kind of ecosystem, is that everybody wants to chase, everyone chases the role models. And that's also, you know, that comes back to the challenge that we face in South Africa so, you know, we can have a debate around what an ATP 250 in South Africa would cost now, apart from the fact that we don't have a stadium. We don't have the infrastructure in the stadium, because remember that when we had the ATP 250 in Johannesburg in 9, 10, and 2009, 211, and 212, that was a temporary structure. It was scaffolding and all the rest of it. And if you that we had to hire for the best part of 3 months, and then
that's quite an ordeal to build.
So you know, so my rough calculation, you know, with all the fees that you want to pay to have some of the top players to come, and is very much modeled on the numbers that I have had shared with me from the Hong Kong 250. They took it over from Chennai, who called it quits because it wasn't making money, and the sponsors were getting tired and all the rest of it. And if you actually look at how they fund their model, a good chunk of it comes from government. Yes, you've got a headline sponsor, but in fact the headline sponsor and it doesn't chip in as much as your Department of Tourism, etc., and then your, you know, all your other logistical support, like the police and things like that. You know, when you add up all that, the headline sponsor is really only the person who writes out or does the EFT.
Yes.
You know, you know, by my estimation, and you know, that in my estimation, depending on where you hold it and all the rest of it, it could be anything between 200 and 250 million rand for 1 week of tournament. Now, some people will argue differently, that you could do it on a cheaper side, and no, may well be, but your problem still your problem still comes down to is the facility, and therein also lies. If we go back to where we started this podcast about the gentleman from the IPL, and he maintains that one of the biggest problems that the IPL has is that the government and the owners of the IPL haven't been reinvesting money into the what he calls the infrastructure of the stadiums, and that the stadiums could be made bigger, etc. One of the massive problems that we have in South Africa with all sport types is our stadiums, whether it's soccer, whether it's rugby, whether it's tennis. We are on the back foot. I mean, the bottom line is that Cape Town actually sold Roland-Garros. Yes, they're sitting on a whole pile of cash at the moment, which they're trying to work out what to do with, and you know, trying to engage with the city of Cape Town and all the rest of it. And at least I think there are some positive signs. At least you know, with the connections, the political connections that Cape Town tennis have, I think that will be resolved. But I mean, the old Ellis Park is a disaster. Kroonkloof is too small. Westridge is involved in a huge legal fight with the municipality about its, and that's affecting its sustainability. So, you know, we're on the back foot. There are a couple of other provinces that there's supposedly been money plowed into, you know, a big fancy stadium out somewhere near Northwest, etc., which is, you know, is riddled with, with corruption. I will say that Northwest University at Potchefstroom spent a huge amount of money on their stadium. They've got 6 clay courts, they've got 2 grass courts. In fact, we have a tournament happening there as I speak to you, etc., on clay, sponsored by one of our main sponsors, Renault, the motorcar brand, which is our vehicle sponsor, which is really great. And
they also do the French as well.
They're also sponsoring the French, and that's part of the connection. That's why it's on clay at this time of the year. So so that's great. And then there's just been a total
going back to.
Sorry, I digressed.
No,
I digressed to the question, the viability of being a top being a top tennis player, of the young lady from Poland, who was 114 in the world. To my point,
114. That's not blind.
You know, 114 in the world out of, and of that, let's call it 112 million people who play tennis in the world. 52% are women, 48% are men. So, and basically, you know, it's hand to mouth stuff. You know, sort of almost, in some cases, riding a bicycle to get to her next tournament, and I use that jokingly, etc. But that gives you an idea of how tough it is out there.
So she's 114 going
into, which means that she doesn't qualify. She doesn't get into the main draw. She's got to play qualifying draw. So as she said yesterday, she's played 3 weeks of tough tennis. She's played 3 weeks of tough tennis. Great that she's only lost 1 set until the finals. Okay. But, you know, you also have, you know, empathy with her, in that, you know, she, you saw how her upper legs and thighs were strapped and all the rest of it, etc. Because it's tough. It's tough at the top there in terms of the level of tennis that you play, back and forth. And you know, as much as say, oh, but they're only playing every second day. No, they're not playing every second day.
It's hot. It's windy.
It's hot. It's windy. But
temperature was.
But you're on the court in the day in between for 6 hours, and you're in the gym and etc. And you're working on your core and the like. It's not
and mentally you.
Yeah, so very much at that. Look, I have a view that by the age of 15, 16, it's your success in tennis is very much dependent on what's between your ears and how you're managing your body. It's not about whether you can or can't play a shot.
Yeah.
By the age of 15, if you don't know how to serve and if you don't know how to play a backhand, well, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that you can't tweak it.
Yeah.
Okay, but the basics of a forehand, backhand, serving, drop shot, whatever the case might be, if you haven't got it by 15, think of another career.
Yeah.
Enjoy the social tennis kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what it takes. And mentally, you've really got to be strong. And all the top players have got their psychologist.
Yes.
And in fact, one of the things that I do is I generally look to invite a young aspiring youngster to come and experience something like that.
Yes, yeah.
And I had one of our top juniors with me at Roland-Garros this year.
How was that?
And I think he thoroughly enjoyed himself. In fact, he's at he left on Friday morning early to go and play a J300 up in Germany, where he's currently based.
Okay.
On his own. On his own, as such. And, he was just saying how much benefit he'd derive from having a psychologist. He's number 3. He's our number 3 under 18 boy, as such. I know even our number one player has a psychologist. It's about psychology, but it's about, if you think back, and it's always with the benefit of hindsight. If we think back to ourselves at 18 years or 18, we're fairly naive.
Yeah.
And how do you wake up in the morning motivated and etc. And I always and I think there's huge men. I mean, all the top players have their someone like Casper Ruud.
Yes.
That was a game changer for him. Was I think it was about 2 years ago. He was going through a fairly tough patch, thinking, actually, I'm done. And he went. He's been with a psychologist, and that's been the game changer for him. As I always say with tennis, it's very easy to win, but actually, it's about how you deal with your losses. That's actually more important. I always use the example that was shared with me when I was just starting my tennis administration career. As such, was the player that you've got to take your hat off to is lost the first set 6-2, 5-1 down second set, turns it around, takes the second set 7-6, and then takes the third set 6-4, whatever the case might be. That's mental strength to turn that around, and that's what tennis is. It's a ruthless game. There is always going to be a winner and there's always going to be a loser. It's as simple as that.
I always we were big Federer fans growing up, and I think it was a lot more emotional. We spoke about role models, and when your Nadal fans, your Djokovic fans, when they were serving and they would have their moments of break points and you was like on the edge. I always get asked, what happens, do you think, when you are Roger Federer or you're Rafa Nadal, you have match points and you've been serving, you look at the stats and percentage-wise, they've not double faulted, they've made the shot the whole match. What do you think mentally with these guys and girls, that even the top 10, what do you think goes not wrong, but what do you think happens where they just sometimes can't convert, can't win that final point? Because that's what I get asked often is, it's just 1 point they had to win, and the next thing, the set shifts.
Well, let's use the two prime examples that I had the benefit of watching.
Yes,
20.
It's going to ask.
So go to 2019 Wimbledon finals. I think it was Wimbledon 20. I think it was 2019, the year before COVID, and Federer was 2 match points up against Djokovic.
What was it like to be there?
And wow, there we are, Federer, South African, mother's South African. Well, we've got an interest. Wow, kind of thing. and he doesn't make it, and Djokovic takes it, And last year here at Roland-Garros, and Sinner's too. Sinner had, I think, three match points, and doesn't take it. So I don't think either of them would ever admit to say to you that will stay with them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
But the reality is that they are human, and they will always think back and say, if only.
Yeah.
If only. Okay, it's more about the question that the next week they were back, they were playing their next tournament. They were playing their next tournament, and that's about mental strength. That's about mental strength and putting aside, and that is something that both Federer and Sinner have been incredibly good at. But I also, and I can't speak for Sinner, I've never had the privilege of meeting him. I've had the privilege of meeting Federer once, and he will never remember me, and I don't expect him to remember me, etc. But I think, as Sinner said, he hit the brick wall. He just ran out of steam. And lost, what was it, second round of Roland-Garros this year.
I mean,
33 matches, whatever. I mean, you have to accept the fact that the fuel tank is empty. Fuel tank, mentally, the fuel tank is empty. And why do we as businessmen, why do we take leave? You need to take leave, otherwise you just start suffering burnout. You start suffering burnout. So it doesn't matter how much coaching, mental coaching you might have, and all the rest of it. It's about periodization, which is a huge thing that we don't actually pay enough attention to. Particularly tennis players don't pay enough attention. It's about periodization, and because there's huge pressure from your sponsors to participate and to appear because you're promoting their brand and all the rest of it. It's many tennis players, and you're consistently hearing, we're being forced to play too much tennis. We're being forced to play too much tennis, and we're getting injured as a result. And yes, I suppose there is the capitalist, there is the capitalist part to everybody, and that we're all wanting to make, what is enough? And I, as an accountant, I can't tell you what's enough. And if you're a capitalist, there's never enough. It's self-serving. It's what makes us wake up in the morning. I say to me, well, don't you think you own enough farms? And I say, well, how many is enough farms, kind of thing, or whatever the case might be. So, tennis is no different, and to my point, what is enough to retire? And if you're going to retire at the age of 35, you've still got more than half your life to live. You can chew through money quite quickly. You can chew through money quite quickly with a couple of bad investments, or a couple of bad choices of wife, or whatever the case might be. Why is it that you do see so many of our former top sportsmen, end up not having, because they've spent the money, they haven't spent it wisely or invested wisely. Or their money has been easily parted. They've parted easily with it, whatever the case might be. So that is the world we live in. It doesn't matter whether you're socialist, communist, or whatever. It all comes down to money. And sport is big industry. Sport is big money. Just accept it. And it's about working it, and it's about fighting and keeping your share.
What have you learned through tennis applying to life and business? You've got quite an interesting balance between running tennis, playing tennis, being involved in tennis, and then you.
So I've never played professional tennis, I hasten to add. I played tennis at school and all the rest. But I hear what you say. So for me as a person, the thing that I have gained most out of tennis, which no accounting course at university ever dealt with, was dealing with people. And remembering, as I am a total volunteer, I don't get paid for being president of Tennis South Africa. When I come to Roland-Garros or Wimbledon, I pay for myself. The federation doesn't pay. Even within South Africa, a lot of the expenses of going to different provinces or whatever, I will pick up. I did not expect the federation to refund me that. appreciate
Yeah.
that I'm privileged in that I'm able to do that. You know, to some extent, there's an argument that there might be someone who might be better than me, and because they can't afford it, they're not able to do it. Because certainly, if you're a salary person, you couldn't do what I do, and what's needed to be an effective president, etc. But it's been about dealing with humans, and the added part to this is that the majority of people in administration and sport are also volunteers. So how do you motivate a volunteer? Because he's not getting paid. He or she's not getting paid. So it's a very different.
Much as you want to.
It's it's collaborative. It's about listening. It's about understanding. Everyone has a view. Everyone has good to contribute, and I think that in itself is also a challenge in South Africa because of our high unemployment rate. Is that people just can't afford to get involved in helping run a sport type, any sport type. Yes, your more wealthier sport types, because the Springboks have got the profile they have, and I mean the sponsorship that they get from FND, and those numbers are actually mind-boggling per annum. I mean, I'd love to get just a tenth of what FNB give to Spring, but I don't have the number one team, and I don't have the number one player in the world. But that said, the majority of top tennis players always have a kind of a very interesting relationship with their federation, to the point that some don't. In that they believe that the federation hasn't done enough for them, should be doing a lot more for them, etc., etc. And that also, I mean, if you talk to the top tennis players that come from the Grand Slam nations, they have a disconnect with their federation as well, total disconnect, and they believe that they should be supported a lot more, etc. And that then creates a challenge, because they do, in my opinion, get support. And once again, I'm not going to debate what is the significant number. But then what happens is that your players from the non-Grand Slam nations, but he's getting so much, or he's getting so much support from their federation. Why aren't we getting the same? We're just not in that league. We don't have that. We don't have that event, or that event that attracts the spectators, and the spectators determines the interest of sponsors, because if the more spectators you have, the more the sponsors will be. If you look at television in South Africa during the slams, the viewership for tennis jumps from, on average, 3.5 million to nearly 8 million. And you look at what the TV stations are able to then charge the sponsors, or the guys advertising on the tennis, on the thing. I mean, the number just goes just clicks up. That's how the ecosystem works. That's how the ecosystem works. So
what keeps you still motivated to be involved in tennis in general, but specifically South African tennis? What keeps you?
So I have obviously, I'd like to believe I have a huge passion in tennis. I would certainly like to believe that we have a huge amount of talent in South Africa. We are natural sports people. There's no question. We have the climate. If we could get the facilities right, etc., I think we've got a little bit of fine tuning to do on the coaching side as well. That said, we are one of the 19 gold status coaching countries in the world, which has been one of the achievements I have managed to get us to get to. I mean, not even the US is a gold status, accredited ITF coaching nation. So I would really like us to get back to the stage where we have somewhere between 5 and 6 men and women in the top 100. And that we are in the world group of Davis Cup and Billie Jean King Cup as such. And so we have the talent. It's about how do we get there? Do we go back, as I believe we need to be doing, is looking at the super squad system that used to travel,
Yes, yeah.
that used to travel overseas and go to the tournaments there, which is a hell of a lot cheaper than actually hosting a tournament at home.
Yeah.
As such, even if you look at what a basic Whipple $15,000 event a week costs for men and women at Tucky's, I mean, you could go and have a super squad of 8 kids traveling overseas for 6 weeks, having a manager, having a physio, etc., and they would be playing either top junior events, or they would be playing entry. They would be playing $15,000 and $25,000 ITF events and $50,000 challenger events, like we've got it, like we have on at Irene Country Club right at the moment. The finals. So it's actually more cost effective to travel for us than it is for us to host it. For us to host it at home. You put a whole lot of KPIs in, and that you have to be, you have to keep a ranking in order to get that support, etc. It worked. It worked. We haven't had that sponsorship. We haven't had that sponsorship as such. The other thing that you find, remember, with sponsorship, is they tell you how they want their money spent. It's not for us to do what we want to with their money. So, the terminology around how much free money do we have to do with what is actually needed in terms of investing in players? We have very, very little. In fact, we don't have any. The trick of balancing the budget to keep 14 staff members employed and paying their office rent, it's a huge balancing. We have that. But to your question, it's I've loved tennis. Having the privilege of being able to travel as well is huge, and see the networking that one is able to do with the other presidents of other federations to understand their challenges, how we fit in, etc. We've certainly, during mine and my vice president's tenure, we've certainly raised the profile of tennis South Africa in the world. We certainly carry some clout at the International Tennis Federation. I'm the current chairperson of the International Tennis Federation's Audit and Risk Committee. I don't have the time to stand for the board. It is election year next year, but I think I contribute positively to that, and it keeps me honest, and it's a different kind of business, and I love business. I love business. So I love business. I'm passionate about business. I'm always looking for opportunity. And looking to grow my own businesses. But as I say, I'm also firmly of the opinion that everyone needs to get back to society. And how delightful, how great it is that I'm able to give it back in the form of being president of Tennis South Africa, and contribute, hopefully in a positive way, to developing our sport. Sport is also, I can remember, I as I say, had the privilege of going to Hilton College, and I did post-matric. Back in the day, there was something called post-matric, so you did matric, and I went back for another year. I spent total of 9 years at boarding school, as I say. So not at Hilton though, at Highbury's Way, but I can remember one of the things one had to do for one of those post-matric classes was that you had to put together a speech for where did you see yourself 30 years after school, kind of thing. And I can remember saying that I thought that I'd end up in politics. And I didn't think it would be tennis politics. I didn't think it would be tennis politics, but sport types actually end up being a microcosm of the country, and the challenges that you face, the challenges that you face, and how you have to navigate the wants and the needs. So in dealing with the problem of sport and recreation, in as much as our incumbent Minister of Sport is an interesting character, and probably as equally strong-willed as myself, and who's prepared to grumble and growl at one another. Sport and recreation also, have an obligation to try and keep people off streets. And they kind of hope that sports federations are going to keep people off streets as well, and that's CSI. And the days of CSI and sport in South Africa, that's worn off.
Yeah.
People are now, like the rest of the world, they're wanting to fund role models and they're wanting to fund events. They're not worried about whether people are kicking a soccer ball or a cellotape little bubble of paper around on the street in Soweto as such. And those days of that kind of support, you've got to find a different way, a different ways of funding that. That said, also, I think the majority of people in South Africa expect too much from government. So tennis players actually have to take responsibility for their sport type themselves. And that's a difficult challenge because it's actually quite frightening when you work out what the cost of living is in South Africa as well. So, I mean, one of the challenges we face, is so the biggest sponsors of any child's tennis is their parent. And you look at the cost of sending your child to play junior nationals in Bloemfontein once a year. Okay. And by the time, so if you haven't gone yourself, so and remember that was the huge jump in the fuel price right over junior nationals as well. Myself, I drove from Wartburg to Bloemfontein on a tank of diesel, and I managed to fill up before the 12 o'clock midnight, whatever it was, and save myself 610 Rand or whatever it was. But there and back was 4,000 Rand. That was just in diesel. That was before you've sorted out your bed and breakfast accommodation, your entry fee, and all the rest of it. And generally speaking, because it's Easter, you're going to take your wife and your children, your kids with you. And as somebody said, it's a 12.5 grand plan. 12,500 Rand is 12,500 Rand in anyone's turn. I mean, the majority of people in South Africa don't earn 12,500 Rand. That's the reality. So, those are the pressures and those are the challenges that all sport types take and face. But throw in the fact that it's an individual sport. It's definitely double the price of sending your kid on a team rugby event and to play in some festival, wherever the case might be. So it's a challenge. Or individual. It's no different overseas. I come back to the Dominic team story as such. And, he was saying that it was costing his parents in the region of $100,000 a year. Yes, he had a bit of federation help. And, I was a little bit surprised, but I still think he was right, because in as much as Europe is the equivalent of South Africa as provinces, there's traveling. I mean, some places you can stay at home and you can just go across the border and play. You can go and play your tournament in Germany and travel back to Denmark in the evening, etc. So those are all factors. Those are all factors in the equation. So I mentioned, just to give you put something else into perspective for you. I shared. So there, if you'd look at our three top under 18 boys at the moment, and Connor Doig made it to the quarterfinals singles, quarterfinals doubles. And if you look at what his budget was for the last 3 years to try and become a professional tennis player, he's taken the decision to lower that risk and to spend a couple of years at American University at Baylor in Texas, just outside Austin. But the budget was in the region of 3.5 million Rand a year, basic.
So basic,
I mean, you're into, what's that? The top 5% of what the top 5% earners, and that's out of after-tax money for the parents. I mean, so he was lucky in that he had certain sponsorships and a level of help. But I mean, it was a huge thing, and I think logically at the end of the day, the risk to reduce that risk was to spend some time at university. He doesn't necessarily have to finish it. Your Tommy Pauls and those guys, they did 2 years. Sheldon, the Sheldon kid as well. They did a couple of years. They didn't then they can finish their degree by correspondence or whatever. But at least what will happen is that, okay, so if after 2 years he decides, well, I do want to go pro, he's matured, he's etc. But if he doesn't, he carries on, finishes his degree. He's got a backup plan. So he's got a backup plan. So, but those are the challenges. Those are the challenges.
I want to ask.
We're gonna end up fighting with that guy.
Yeah. How's your? I mean, it's
How are we doing for time?
12 or 8.
Yeah, I've got another 10 minutes.
Yeah. Try to think if maybe we should
ask him. Do you think he can give us 10 minutes?
5 minutes. Let me ask him and see if he. That's what I want to. Oh, it's because what? He has 5 minutes just for us to finish talking. Okay, cool. Merci beaucoup. One of the questions was, out of the matches you've been privileged to watch, what stood out as a minus your dramatic feature final, which is a touchy topic. What's been the type of matches you've watched where it's just you have to pinch yourself if you're there? That really stands out to mind, and the players you've watched, throughout the years, what players matches, what's been real memorable. I know it's quite a
it's quite a tough question. Those are tough questions. You take if you take the matches I remember, and as you've shared, I've had the privilege of watching a lot of matches. And I take the I think the first match that still is ingrained in my memory was the I think it was third round or fourth round Wimbledon when Kyrgios beat Nadal. I think that was 2013. I think it was. And Kyrgios arrived with the full package on court. He brought all the right kit, he brought his right tennis rackets, and he cleaned out whatever was between his ears. And he cleaned up Nadal. I think it was in 3 sets where it was, and everyone was gobsmacked. Kyrgios arrived. Kyrgios arrived, and the rest is history from there. But so there was that. Then I suppose the next match that comes to mind was the Isner Anderson match, which was 2018. I think it was the year before the other match I mentioned, the Djokovic. So when Kevin made it to the finals of
he beat Federer that year.
He beat Federer on number 1 court. And he came back from 2 sets. Hard. I remember that rain interruption. Etc. Before the roof was on court 1. I remember that, but I remember the 24-22 final score and the final set against Isner, etc. And Kevin, that smash or that shot there, he slipped, and Isner, I think, was a smash or whatever, and Kevin had his right hand on the floor, but hit the ball back with his left and won the point. I think it was. So that's a match that stands out, etc. And that resulted in the scoring system changing. It resulted in the scoring thing where the final set became, what was it, at 12 all. At 12 all, it became a match tiebreak. And I think it's been reduced now to even at 6 all in the 5th set. It becomes a match tiebreak, 1st to 10, etc. So that's those are matches. Then, as I say, the Federer Djokovic final, the Sinner Alcaraz final last year as well, and the Grand Slam finals, they are always special. It doesn't matter who's playing.
Do I dare ask what's your favorite tournament to watch, or
I think that's probably a little bit of an unfair. It's an unfair. And can I say to you that it over the years, it's changed. It also changes. The reinvestment that those Grand Slam event owners or the organizers are plowing back into that event are massive. As I shared with you, I think earlier, the amount of money that is being currently spent on the refurbishment of the Billie Jean King Stadium
Yes.
at New York, is mouth-watering.
Yes.
But the return that they'll get on that is huge. They've literally stripped out Arthur Ashe Stadium, rebuilding it, and a whole lot of the other stadiums. If you look at, what Wimbledon or what the All England Cup is looking to do in terms of having bought the golf course next door, and they finally seem to have sorted out all the environmental issues and all the rest of it, and what they're looking to do and to improve that experience. If you look at what they've done here at Roland-Garros as well, it's huge. If you look at what Tennis Australia and has done with the Australian Open, I mean the amount of money that has been pumped back into improving the whole fan experience and all the rest of it, and comes back to, once again, reinforcing, the spectators are the number one. It's marketing 101. It's about maximizing the spectator experience, whether it's the physical one on site or whether it's on the TV viewership. It's about that. And and if you can throw that in and improve the player experience and all the rest of it, that's just going to add to the aura and develops the brand, etc., etc. So it's I'm not gonna give you a definitive answer on that. I'm not going to give you a definitive answer because, as I say, as the president, and being Tennis South Africa, and the clout that we have in terms of the voting power we have at the International Tennis Federation, we are invited, and I am invited as president, and as I say, be it that I pay for myself and all the rest of it. The experience is there. The level of networking is massive. I can pick up the phone to Tennis Canada tomorrow and say, I've got a challenge with a player there, or can you help me with this, or can you help me with that? Or I'm curious to know what's your development program, etc. That's the relationship that Tennis South Africa has out there. We've developed that, and we've got that network, and a lot of it is done at this type of event.
And so obviously the context or nature of the podcast was, as I mentioned earlier, about kind of that obviously Black Swan event is something that's completely unexpected and unusual, sometimes not necessarily good. But how would you say, if you find this being relevant to yourself, that you've had to think differently or be different to do what you've done and not follow the herd, or
I've never followed the herd for one.
Well, then
I've never followed the herd for one.
Well, there you go.
I've never followed the herd for one. So
that's
so prior to the to the podcast, you mentioned yourself and COVID and the like. So our CEO at the time was Richard Glover, who, as you're probably aware, has moved across. He went to the ATP and then he moved across to Live Golf, and in fact he was involved he was the tournament director, I think, at the Live Golf event up at Stain City. And tennis thrived during COVID because it was a non-contact sport. And we actually saw the number of people participating in tennis grow as such. And so it gave us a certain amount of momentum, and it's about consolidating. It's been about consolidating that, and trying to do it better, trying to think out of the box. How do we continue to grow tennis? How do we in South Africa look to make it a spectator sport that more people want to watch? I'll be blunt in saying to you that we accept that we haven't made great inroads into the Black community. There is support amongst Indians, there is support amongst coloureds, but we haven't really dented. We haven't got the traction in the Black communities. And I think it's fair to say that there isn't and hasn't ever been a tennis culture.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Most people, why did I stop playing tennis? Because my parents played tennis.
Yeah.
They took us to the club over on the weekend when they played, or I can remember as a kid, my mother used to play tennis on a Wednesday morning with a ladies group.
Yes.
And, the kids used to, with your nanny, used to go along and watch. And, you're going to, kind of gets a little bit ingrained.
Yeah.
So, and then into school. And then if you've got a passionate tennis master or tennis mistress at the school, who's fighting for tennis, so it goes. But they're fewer and fewer. And in the black schools, they would. Apart from the fact they just didn't have the facilities anyway.
Yes.
They didn't have the facilities anyway. Well, the courts. The courts. And so, those are the challenges that an individual sport has. If I could find an Anton Rupert like golf has, that would be great.
Yeah.
That is what it is, and good for him. Good for him for doing that. And but yeah, that just makes it a more interesting, and it makes it more challenging, and it just really sets it sets the bar to what is attainable. There's nothing that's not attainable, etc. And it's all about, as the president, it's about trying to keep it cohesive. It's about making sure that there is opportunity, all right, that there is opportunity for you to become a top tennis player, as difficult as it is. So yes, you can say, do we, as I say, the debate is, do we go the high performance traveling squad, or do we look at trying to have events locally? The high performance squad doesn't really attract the spectators. Tournaments do, but then tournaments, you have an international tournament in South Africa. Is Federer coming to play it? Oh, no, okay. What are we doing on Saturday? No, sorry, I've got to go and watch my kid play rugby. At school. That's it. Today there's the finals. Philip Henning is playing in the finals of the Challenger 50 at Irene. I'll be interested to see how many people
tuning into
will pitch up. We'll pitch up at the event at Irene. So Robbie Koenig's son, and I think Devin Badenhorst made it to the semi-finals of the doubles yesterday. Etc. I think so as I say, we've got the players out there. It's about how they've got to notch up, and they're the only ones that can make it happen on the court. I can't make it happen on the court. I can try and help them around the court, but that's the nature of any individual sport.
Go out there and
they've got to go out there and win the match. I can't win the match for them. I can't win the match for them.
You have a unique
so it's and then they, as I mentioned before, there's the coaching segment that there has to be managed, and the challenges around coaching and being licensed, and safeguarding. Safeguarding is a huge factor nowadays in sport. And all the sad, the abuse that's gone on. Not only, there's obviously been the one high profile case, and etc.
But
there are other sports that have greater challenges in that area than we have as such. And then I don't think people realize what's involved in training an official. From being the lines person, to sitting in the chair, to being the referee, to being supervisors. That in itself is a whole process of etc. So
not going to have the fancy AI tech just yet.
No, it's out there. Linesmen are their days are numbered. I think this is the last year that they're having linesmen even at Roland-Garros. So it'll go Hawkeye. But Hawkeye does not come at a small cost.
No.
When this 2 weeks of Challenger events worked out
Yeah.
what Hawkeye was going to cost on 4 courts. It was cheaper to have umpires,
For
to
that.
have linesmen.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
So, and it's about motivating those people.
Yeah.
A lot of those people come from disadvantaged communities.
Yeah.
So,
It's,
they, and if you had tournaments on a regular basis, they could start getting a monthly income,
yeah.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a whole ecosystem.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a whole ecosystem that is just not there.
Yeah.
It is not there as such. And at times, as I say, also, 14 people to run tennis in South Africa, because most of the provinces, other than I think 3, who've got a permanent secretary, all volunteers.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating, not only for us, but for them as well, to try and, suddenly you've got to try and put together an inter-pro team or whatever, and
Yeah.
etc. And you're trying to do it after hours because your boss isn't that happy with you doing it during hours, and all the rest of it. So those are all the kind of challenges that we face, which
it's part of
the game.
Yeah.
As I say, I think the Grand Slam nations, they have different challenges. They all have challenges. Every business has challenges, believe me. So
yeah.
every business has challenges. So but that's what makes it interesting. That's why I'm passionate about business and the business of tennis.
And today, who's your heart with today?
So I always take the position that I'm totally neutral.
Yeah.
May the best person on the field win. Okay. Experience would lean towards the ref.
Yeah.
And probably the more complete game. If Kobeli arrives and his serve works,
Yeah.
I believe he's in with a good shot.
Yeah.
He's in with a good shot. I think Kobeli's number 7 or 8,
Yeah.
or 7 or 9, or somewhere on there. Zurich is obviously, I think, 4, 5, etc. So
an interesting Grand Slam.
But it's good for tennis.
Yeah.
It's not as much as everyone would have thought that it was going to be Alcaraz and Sinner again.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not. It just shows that they are human.
Yeah.
And that they are human. And to my earlier point, it does mean that there's a better spread of prize money and the like. Not that I'm suggesting Kobeli and Zurich are literally struggling. It's a good point
that you bring up.
It's important. It's important. And I mean, if you look at someone like Arnoldi, I think he was 104, 105 in the world. Okay, he got sick, and so he couldn't make the semifinals. But I think that's one of his. If that is his biggest payday ever,
then it's
be it that he didn't actually play.
Good that he
be it that he didn't play. But the fact is that, I mean, financially, that gives him a huge kick.
Yeah.
In terms of what he can and can't do. Probably with that kind of numbers behind him now.
Yeah.
He can employ a coach. He can a permanent coach to travel with him.
Yeah.
Like, for me, Sinner's game changers Darren Cahill.
Yeah.
And that's why he wasn't prepared to let Darren, in my opinion, he wasn't prepared to let Darren go.
Yeah.
Like, Darren wanted to finish up last year, and he said,
"No,
you're my game changer.
Yeah.
You're the difference.
Yeah.
You're the difference. It's about what's between the ears.
Yeah.
And good for him.
Yeah.
It just empowers.
Yes.
It effectively empowers more players to play better and everything, and of course that becomes self-serving, because as much as Sinner and Alcaraz have a target on their back, the greater number of people who are able to be pushing them, it just lifts the whole, it lifts the full stage of tennis right through, and it also helps. It also helps the juniors realize what they have to achieve to get there, etc. They've got to understand that if you work out what business people, how many hours they put into their business, it's no different.
No, it's no different.
It's what I think Federer said, it was like 28,000 hours that he put into tennis before, from the age of when his parents finally allowed him to turn, say, okay, it's tennis and it's no longer soccer, and and skiing and all the rest of it, because they wouldn't allow him to. At 9, he wanted to become like Alcaraz, just the tennis back. And they said, no, 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 no. And they reset him down at 15, and he said, no, still tennis. And that's when he went to Italian Academy. So
Kai Hill talks in an interview a few years ago about how hard Federer trains, and how you just see him rock up at a tournament, and he even said it's like he's coming to play country at the country club, play doubles or something, And he said you don't appreciate how hard the man works off court. And okay,
yeah, for me, I
excellent,
forget which tournament it was.
excellent.
Sinner was first match on at one of the days at the Madrid 1000.
Yeah,
And as they always do, they pan around.
yeah,
I think it was the 4 o'clock afternoon match. I came in from the office, and I had the privilege of my office obviously is on the farm, and
yeah,
it's 20 meters to my back door of my house, and I came for a cup of tea and
yeah,
whatever. And they was whatever the match was,
yeah.
of the Madrid 1000, and it panned across, and there was Sinner on the practice court. He played a match. He was the 12 o'clock match, which I think he was 2 and 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
At 4 o'clock, he was on the court, and he was hitting. I know in his post match interview, finished during lunch.
Yeah,
he was unhappy about his serve. At 4 o'clock, he was serving balls.
that's
the point that Darren Cahill was making. That's the point that Darren Cahill was making. Is it's not okay. I've won my match today. I'm only back on court in 2 days. I'm going sightseeing for the next day. He's back on court at 4 o'clock. He's hitting the ball, etc. And somewhere in the equation, before he goes to sleep, he would have spent another hour in the gym, and he's up again the next morning, breakfast or whatever, or before breakfast, he's gone for a run, etc. And it's all set out. At least there's chill time. There's no question. There's still time, etc. And the team, is doing the analysis of who he's playing next to what that person's weaknesses are. And there's the team meeting of, how are we going to play this match and all the rest of it. It's a business.
Yeah.
It's a
going
business.
back to the.
It's a business.
Yeah.
If you think this is a hit and giggle,
No,
hit and giggle type of thing,
it's a business.
Think again. You're not, unless you are totally 120% committed.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult when you're young. You heard stories of Alcaraz and Ibiza, and all this.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just being a youngster.
Yeah,
he's just being a youngster.
Yeah.
Etc. So yeah, but you've Federer went through stages as well, and also went through the psychologist.
Yeah.
And then had the team around him to build the brand, and
Goes back to the mental aspect.
100%. That it's like that.
Your time's
just about there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, my car's probably here. It's been lovely chatting to you,
Gavin.
I hope I've given you something to think about.
Thanks for taking the time.
And
I really do appreciate it's
been great. Hope I've shared my passion for tennis.
No, I mean my grandmother who's 87 who got me into tennis. I gave her a call yesterday and I said, "Oh, Gaga, I'm chatting to an interesting man tomorrow, and blah blah blah." And she just said, "Of course, Kimon, you'll find the president of South African tennis in the lift at the hotel." But no, it's been really special, and it's been great through the podcast to actually have this platform to do it. And I'll be keen to edit it and share it with you.